Welcome to today's session from Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are on chapter 2 and we'll be going through the verses number 21 to verse 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. Vanchikalpatarubhesya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Chapter 2, Contents of the Gita Summarized, verse 21. Veda Vinashinam Nityam Ya Enam Ajam Avyayam Katham Sa Purushah Partha Kam Ghatyati Hantikam. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Verse 22. Vasam sijirnani yatha vihai navani grihnati naroparani Tatha sharirani vihai jirnai jnani samyati navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Verse 23. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chainam kledayantyapu, na shoshyati marutaha. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Verse 24. Achedyo yam adahyo yam akledyo shoshya evacha nityah sarva gata sthanur achalo yam sanatanaha. Translation. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Verse 25. Avayaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmad evam viditvainam nanusho chitam arhasi. It is said that the soul is invisible, unconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Verse 26. Atha chainam nityajatam nityam va manayase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitam arhasi. Translation. If however you think that the soul or the symptoms of life is always born and dies forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. Verse 27. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma ritasya cha tasmad apariharye rithe natvam shochitam arhasi. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Verse 28. Avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidhanani eva tatraka paridevana. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So, what need is there for lamentation? Verse 29. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschiddainam ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah ascharyavat chainam anyah shrunoti shrutvapi enam vedanav chaiva kaschit. Translation. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Verse 30, Dehi nityam avadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitam arhasi. Translation, O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain, therefore you need not grieve for any living being. So Krishna is talking all about the identity of the living entity. The identity is not the body, the identity is soul. The spirit soul is the real identity. But unfortunately, once we are born, when growing up, the first identity we have is a name of this body and other relations surrounding us and the community we belong to, and when a person starts attending a kindergarten or a school or a university, then there is a roll number. So there's always some kind of identity associated with us throughout this life. And we start to think that our identity is a body. Nobody thinks of the soul. It's not our fault either, because it is not taught to us in the schools, or it is not taught even at homes. Maybe in the past it was, when people used to tell the stories from the scriptures to their youngsters. And so, like we said yesterday, until a person is realized, and then we will think that who is realized? A realized person is the person who knows about the soul, that he or she is not this body, they are spirit soul. And sooner or later, everybody has this dilemma in their life when they think about themselves, what is their identity? And that is the start of the spiritual journey. Now Krishna gives a very condensed form of spiritual journey from beginning of the actual life of a person, starting from chapter 2. After hearing Arjun's further doubts, Krishna tells him, like we were telling yesterday, that he has to remember that he is an eternal soul. And in 2.7 verse, Arjun surrendered to Krishna and he became a disciple of Krishna. So the soul, though is living in the body, is completely different from the body. The body does all the activities while the soul is residing in the body. So our soul is alive. Soul is the force going from our head to our toes. This is the consciousness which is pervading throughout our body. So what is this consciousness? It is the spirit soul. And spirit soul is part and parcel of Lord. And once this soul leaves the body, along with the super soul which resides in our heart, then a person is no longer considered to be living. So until the soul is there within us, during that duration, it fulfills all our desires and all the communications we have with the world around us, with the friends, the family, the relatives, and our work colleagues. So until we realize that this is our real identity, that is the soul, that is the spirit soul, we will have to be reincarnated again and again into so many species of life. Because until we realize that this truth, this eternal truth, that we are not just these bodies that we have got, these are going to perish one day. They started and they will finish as well one day. But there's something within us, the consciousness, that is eternal. So once we realize that, then only our bhakti starts. And then we have the scope of reuniting with the Lord one day. So until then, we are going to be bound to the cycle of birth and death again and again into 8.4 billion species of life which is around us. So we will have until then we'll have the material bodies until we realize this truth that we are not these spirit souls, and we will have the sufferings and all the problems related with this body, the problems of the material world. Sorry. Now the realization of our true identity, that we are the spirit soul and we are not this body like we were talking yesterday, is given by a bona fide spiritual master, and this knowledge comes all the way from Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. Now, this sounds very basic, this knowledge, but nobody has ever tried to understand it properly or to realize it properly. Now, when we do start to think about our purpose of life and we try to look for answers around us to this question, then only we'll be able to feel uplifted, then only we'll be able to liberate our souls. Now this question is an eternal question as well, which comes to everyone sooner or later. It is a very inquisitive question for both the listener and the person who is going to answer it from the Shastras for them. So the life truly begins once this inquiry takes place in a person. Now Krishna explains to Arjun that he will not have any sinful reactions if he fights in the war, because he has to stay fixed in his service, that is fighting, because he's a Kshatriya and he has to ignore his mind's desires, because he has to remember that he's an eternal soul and he is not the body, and the soul is more important than the body. Krishna also reminds Arjun that there was never a time when Krishna wasn't there or Arjun wasn't there, and in future also they will continue, and eternally this relationship will continue. So in these verses, Arjun is told again and again about the eternal nature of the soul by so many examples of, for example, Krishna tells in the shloka that fire can't do anything to the soul, water can't do anything to the soul, the weapons, they can't do anything to the soul, because it is eternal. Only the body will get the harm, the soul will stay as it is. So Krishna asks Arjun to tolerate the pains of the killing of his relatives, because he has to re-establish the dharma or the religion. That is his duty. And he has to tolerate everything, just like the seasons, summer and winter, and in discharging of his duty. The soul is imperishable, indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal. Nobody can measure the soul as well, because the size is, Krishna, as he says in Bhagavad Gita, is very, very minute, that with the eye nobody can see that. And in the body, it is absolutely exactly opposite to the qualities of the soul. It is temporary, it gets distracted as well, it can be distracted, and we can measure. We all have a certain size of our body, so tall or so much weight we have. So Arjun is advised not to grieve for anybody in the on the battlefield, because they are all going to come to an end. So Arjun's questions are answered by Krishna about the soul, and he is told that it's the soul which is important. He has to keep this perspective in his mind. He has not to think about the body. He's only thinking on the bodily platform with all the relationships. That's why he has all the lamentation of not being able to get up and get ready for the fight on the battlefield. Krishna reminds Arjuna again and again about his duty to fight and overcome all the grief and the weakness of his heart. And in such a confused state, Arjun asked Krishna's guidance, and he became disciple as well of Krishna. Now, Krishna is Arjun's spiritual master. So like a bona fide spiritual master, Krishna is going to answer all the questions of Arjuna from here onwards. So Krishna has established that for us as well, to satisfy our spiritual quest, we have to find a bona fide spiritual master who is connected to a disciplic succession. He or she has got some kind of credentials, like we go and study in a university or in a school or a college or anywhere. We look for the credentials advancement as well. When we have our spiritual master, we have to make sure that he is a bona fide, he is coming from a lineage which is connected to Krishna at the top. Then only our spiritual quest will be satisfied, and we will be able to understand and have the self-realization that we are not this body, we are the soul, and so forth. So Krishna has imparted all the wisdom about the soul up to verse 30, and tomorrow we will continue from verse 31. I wish you all a very happy day ahead. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining.